Hey, this is Genki, author of Rich and Rehashing, and this is your audio recap. I'm here with Steve Bogda.
Hello.
And we're gonna talk about this article a little bit. Basically, I ended up writing this because of 4chan. I was browsing on V, and there were some people start smack talking games like Halo and Call of Duty, and just saying, oh, that game sucks, and there's too many of them, they're never any good, and they need to make something new. I want more games like God Hand. And it just bugged me because I hear people say this stuff all the time. I hear people always complain about Halo and Call of Duty and even Gears of War. Gears of War was a big one. A lot of the mechanics are used in every third-person shooter now. But it was bugging me because the industry is making more games like those games because they sell well. I love God Hand.
Innovation isn't profitable.
Exactly. It's not profitable the way it used to be. Back in the early days of the NES and Sega Master System and all that stuff, you had to innovate. There was nothing else to do but innovate. And even then, they were copycats. When Mario came out, everybody started copying Mario. Sega made Alex Kidd. It wasn't completely Mario-like, but it was definitely similar and was supposed to be, a competitor for that market. It was easier back then to innovate because, it was beginning. But now we're at the point where people don't care anymore. And also it's because of the way that society is run. Everybody wants their money now. That's the way businesses run now. They used to build it up over like an investment where they would spend so much money trying to make something. It's like, okay, well, we'll make our money back eventually. And we're cool with that. But now it's like, no, we need to make the money now. Within that first few months of this game's release, we need to get that money back. Or this movie that's coming out, we need to get that money now. Don't worry about DVD sales. We need that money now. And because of that, people are pressured to get money so that they can go home at the end of the day and sleep well, be able to afford food for their families, and they're pressured out of innovating. It's just like, I need to make money.
There's a flaw with this argument.
Yeah.
And the flaw is that the higher the risk, the greater reward. It's a common economic principle. That's why people invest in new IPs. It's not because they want to make a new game. It's because a new IP has a huge reward. Like, if you make a successful franchise, that's going to be better than, a Halo 5 or a Halo 6. It's true. If you make a new franchise, that's a whole new profit avenue that you're building. So there is an incentive to make new IPs. It's a huge incentive. It's a large risk, and the larger the risk, the more money you could possibly make. But people just aren't willing to take the risk anymore. That is the major problem. Gamers don't want to. Developers don't want to make that risk, and it's creating a sense of comfort in the status quo for gamers. Gamers, maybe, at least for the past couple of years, it seems like games are getting more and more familiar. The new IP doesn't come around, and when the new IP does, like Dead Island, it's a very similar game to other games of the genre. And you're reaching this point where I believe that gamers are starting to crave new experiences, and just entirely different video games. And that's why a new generation is finally needed. Because at the advent of new generation, there's always an advent of new IPs, new experiences, and hopefully some indie companies getting bigger breaks.
Yeah.
It usually happens towards the beginning of a generation than the end of one. And we're seeing that point at the end of a generation now where you get sequels, rehashes, and now games are getting remakes. It's getting to the point where developers don't want to take risks. And maybe it's a cyclical thing and not more. So that it's not as if developers have been building up to this point for 20 years. I think this cycle happens consistently rather than it being the product of 20 years of development, and this is where the video game industry is headed. I think it's a cyclical problem, and we should see it amended in the next generation, the beginning of the next generation, as it was amended in the beginning of this generation. Like, think about how many great IPs we got this generation. Mass Effect, BioShock, Uncharted. These are great games that broke a lot of molds.
Yeah, but there were that like. Can you name any others besides those three? Because I feel like a lot of the other games
Well, yes, I
passed
could.
over from last generation,
I
where
mean,
there was a lot more. There was a lot more innovation last generation.
Little Big Planet, and whether we like to admit it or not, all those Wii games are still, those are new IPs. I don't. No one likes to give Nintendo credit for them.
You mean the ice cream game?
No, like Wii Sports.
Oh,
We have to not. We can't really deny it. We don't like to admit it.
I get. Well, see, there was already a game like Wii Sports on PlayStation 2 before the Wii came out. They had.
But I think that's also something to be said for making a game making, even if it is based off of another game, the popular version.
Yeah.
There's a reason why it's popular and one isn't. I don't think it's because one goes viral or something. I think no, it's because one's a better game, one is better executed, and Wii Sports was perfectly executed. It also helped that it came with every single Wii.
Yeah.
But just in many ways, it might have been just in terms of execution and what it accomplished. It might have been the best, most influential game of the generation. Actually, it is. I'm not going to say it isn't. It definitely was the most influential game of the generation. Think about
I'll agree with that.
the trend it created. I'm actually going to be writing an article about the power of Wii Sports. That's one of my next editorials, so you could all look out for that.
Well, I'm excited for that. I'm glad you're plugging that now.
And your recap.
In my recap, yes. Well, if you, I agree with you where you say that, we're at the end of a cycle. That does make sense, and I really do hope that more of these indie developers start getting bigger, like Team Meat.
Yes, everyone points to Team Meat as the developer. We all hope makes like a huge $100 million blockbuster game.
I mean, that's just one. I mean, that's
I'm not,
current
like,
big one.
deriding your point. I'm just saying that I agree. Let's have Team Meat make the next great IP.
Team Meat, and then maybe the Behemoth, and maybe Mojang, maybe.
Maybe.
But yeah.
And this was your audio recap.